Welcome back, brother.
Welcome, brother. So good to be back here in our beautiful Brotherhood podcast.
Yeah, in our virtual studio.
In our virtual studio, yes, in our virtual home. It's so weird that we meet almost every week, right? Also due to Somatic, the training. And it feels like truly like you're part of my life, but not physically.
I know. Which I don't know if we've ever actually like mentioned this on the podcast, but like I'm in just outside of Seattle, Washington, and you're in
Mm.
Sweden.
I'm in Sweden, yeah, on the other side of the ocean.
Yeah. So it's funny, y'all. Like when we're recording this podcast, like it's morning time for me and it's
Mm.
nighttime for Samir.
Yeah. It's evening. I'm really, it's so funny because usually when we're in the training, like I'm the night owl, we always start at 12 p.m. PST, which is around like 9 o'clock p.m. here in Sweden. And for this podcast, we switched it a little bit more to humane hours for me. So thank you for that, being aware of it. Yeah. Yes, we were just chatting before we went into our studio about our last podcast where we talked about the somatic awareness, and we talked about how important it is to create space, and that this is one fundamental part of the work that we both do, also for somatic. And yeah, and I'm really excited to dive deeper into that topic today, and I think there's a lot of value also for all the listeners, to how to cultivate inner space, and especially inner awareness. Like we knew from this mindfulness revolution that it's very important and very powerful to be mindful of the outer world, right? Like to really center yourself and being aware what is happening around you. But I feel that this somatic awareness goes also now into the other direction, like being mindful of this inner universe. And yeah, let's dive into that.
Yeah. I mean, like I think it's interesting because when I first heard the somatic awareness practice, when you and I went through the course a little over 3 years ago, it was like up until that point, I never had the words of like what actually is somatic awareness. Like I'd heard
Mm,
awareness before, especially talked in like the space of meditation, becoming aware of your thoughts, becoming aware of, you know, who is the thinker versus who is the observer. And, so coming about awareness from a cognitive standpoint, more from like a mental space, whereas like
mm,
somatic awareness is really all about how can you be aware of what's happening in your body, not just in your mind, but in your body. And so like creating this degree of separation of using the mental concentration capabilities of our mind to actually
mm,
look within our body from this like
mm.
bottom up approach instead of this top down approach like psychology normally uses.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Beautiful, yeah, absolutely. And while you were speaking, I was just thinking about it's interesting because when I go back into my yoga practice, and like the 8 limbs of yoga actually also incorporate that, where it goes like from it's on both, like they use both uh, uh, approaches, like the top down and also the bottom up, right? I mean, starting also with the asanas, so to really have a connection somatically, so to really feel the body through movement, then using the breath and pranayam to connect with the whole different systems in your body. You have the nervous system, endocrine system, digestive system. All of that can be centered, aligned, as you know, with the breath. And pratyahara, like to um, let go of the senses. Yeah, so to really focus, the focus point coming to more and more in the center, where then dharana is then really the focus on one thing, like usually the breath or a mantra or whatever you use as an anchor, right? So it's really interesting that in the yogic tradition they also use this bottom up approach. And I think in the Western tradition we are so mind driven, and so in a mental uh, dominant perception of reality, that I know that like mindfulness was such a hit, like such a revolutionary concept then for a lot of people, because it is really having to do with the mind, to really observe the mind. And yes, like the somatic approach is a different one. I think maybe people who are familiar with yoga find some similarities in that. But when I started with somatic, and when we also went through the somatic awareness practices, for me it was very intuitive to go into these um, three levels of our soma, or of our body, of our being, basically. Yeah, like the sensations, the emotions, and also the mind, of course, the bottom up approach. um yeah, so let's maybe go a little bit into the practice, like how we maybe how we do this practice, and how we teach this practice. I mean, if you would maybe we can a little bit elaborate on that for everyone here.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those of you that are listening, if you're not familiar with the work of somatics, so somatics is basically meaning of the body. Soma is the body. So this somatic awareness practice is all about cultivating awareness of how your body is trying to communicate to you. So Samir spoke on these three different levels. And so we first want to start off with noticing the physical sensations of the body. Like, what do you physically notice happening within yourself? Maybe you notice tension in your back. Maybe you notice pain in a shoulder or a knee. Maybe you notice tingling in your hands or your feet. Maybe you just notice the expansion of your breath and your diaphragm and your lungs. Just taking a moment to tune into those physical sensations. And then after we've spent some time tuning into those physical sensations and cultivating awareness around them, we take our awareness one step deeper and look into, are there any emotions that are behind those physical sensations? So as in, say, using pain in the knee, okay, is there any emotion that's coming up when I tune into that pain in the knee? Maybe it's stress. Maybe it's, we've put too much pressure on ourselves. Maybe it's a feeling of overwhelm, whatever that emotion is that's behind that. Then taking that information and going one step even deeper. And are there any stories behind the physical sensations that are behind the emotions?
Mm.
Really tuning into now this mental aspect of like what stories are attached to the emotion that's attached to the physical sensation. The reason that this is so important to like move through these steps in this way is that bottom up approach of like allowing us to recognize that our body is going to communicate to us first and foremost through physical sensations. And you can almost, I remember Fish years ago came up with this way of speaking to this of like, when we're learning any language, we start off with learning the alphabet. We learn the letters. Then we move in and we can cultivate words. And then once we have our letters and words, then we can create sentences. And so you can almost think of the physical sensations as learning the alphabet of your body. You're learning the letters. How is your body actually trying to create words through these sensations? The emotions are those words then that are created from those physical sensations. Then the stories are the sentences. So we can kind of go through this practice really quick of just tuning into all three of these forms of ourselves to see how interconnected the stories are to the emotions, are to the physical sensations. Because many times, like, it's as simple as once you're aware of the physical sensation and then you're aware of the emotion and then you're aware of the story, if the story isn't true, you can then change that story or let go of that story, which very well may shift that emotion that then shifts the physical sensation. It's actually a
Exactly.
really, really rad process that happens
Mm.
once you start to develop this awareness.
Exactly. And it's so powerful. It is so powerful, and also gives one a deeper access, and also becoming more and more familiar of the communication of the body. Like, what is my body actually communicating? If we are stuck in here in our mind and it's just about the story, then we basically lose so much information, right? Because we are just having a filter, like it's just looking through peephole, just on like a very, very small frame of information that we are then receiving, instead of like having the whole, opening the whole book, right? And I think this is something that we have to relearn, like to really come back into the body, into the soma. And this practice is a wonderful, wonderful tool to learn or relearn again, connecting with the language of your body. I love how you explained that also, that we can go from the bottom up, but also then from the top down again. Yeah, so it's like in both directions. It's like a landscape where you can connect all the dots to understand a little bit more what is happening in me and why am I maybe feeling in a certain way, or why do I behave in a certain way, right? All of that is connected with this vessel of ours. And I think this is like a beautiful step to go deeper also regarding creating space, inner space. Because for me, especially, like coming from the yogic tradition where it's all about the space, all about also awareness, and um, it is so profound to understand that when I am connecting with my inner universe, for example, a body scan, it's a very, I mean, a lot of people know the body scan, right? To really just go from the feet up and scan the body with your awareness up to your head. What this practice is doing, and somatic awareness as well, is it creates this perception of I am witnessing what is happening in me, whereas I am that. So in this distinction between I am, like I'm sick, like, or I am sad, I feel shitty. All of these terms, I am, is an identification, which is basically not allowing for inner space. But as soon as I am observing what actually is, why do I feel shitty? Why do I feel sad? Then I go and I observe, for example, the pain. I observe the sensation. I observe the sadness. Then it creates space because there's an observer, and not anymore the identification with the sensation or the emotion, and even with the thought. This is why we go from step to step. Like, first you're just looking at the sensations. What can you notice? Then you go up. How do you feel? Like, what emotion is present? And then what thought? What the story? So looking at your mind, looking at the thought. And by that, to really be connected with the observer rather than with the sensation, emotion, or the story in your head. And this is such a profound step to deeper understanding of awareness, of consciousness, because that is literally the step needed for, oh, I am the awareness. All of that is happening inside of my awareness, yeah, in the space that I observe. So I usually, sometimes with my clients, I do a step further. I incorporate a fourth level. Like, it's like the sensations, it's the emotions, it's the story, and then the awareness. Yeah. Like, be aware of the observer. And this is all of a sudden creates like an immense space. And in that space, all of a sudden, like, okay, it's like you have a room, and in that room there are objects, and this object is, for example, a sensation, back pain. And then there's another object, it's an emotion, sadness. There's another object. This is a thought about, I don't know, the conversation that I had with my partner in the evening. Yeah. All of that is happening in that space. And that allows this inner space to cultivate inner space. And by that also to not fall into this trap of being reactive, for example, being trapped into emotions and feeling overwhelmed constantly. So this is a beautiful way, I think, to incorporate practices like somatic awareness, to create inner space, to feel more in, I wouldn't say control, but more in attunement with your being.
Yeah. Well, and it's really about cultivating this sense of responsibility, right?
Mm.
Because when you're not really aware of the emotions that are connected to physical sensations or the stories that are driving the emotions and physical sensations, you don't really have the conscious ability to choose how you're going to respond in any situation. You're going to be more in a reactionary space. And I'll actually use an example. Yesterday, I was working outside of the house and I got a message from my wife saying that it sounded like there was something inside one of our walls that was like trying to jump up and then was falling down. Like something had gotten into the wall somehow and couldn't get itself back out. And I'm a couple hours away from being home, so there's not really anything that I can do about it. But somatically, when something like that would happen, I would get this like anxiousness that would start to come up in my body of like, Rachel needs something, I'm not there to help. And so it's like feeling like I need to drop what I'm doing and go and help, like go rescue her.
Mm. Mm.
And instead
Mm.
I was like, okay, I'm working on a project that I literally cannot walk away from right now. Like I have to finish this before I can leave. And I didn't feel any of that anxiousness. I was like, you know what? She can figure this out. Or it
Yeah.
can wait until I get home. And in doing so, she then messaged and she was like, what do you think I should do? Like, how can I help? And I was like, well, take the baseboard off, take a hammer and pop a hole in the wall. Like, whatever, figure something out. Or when I get home with my tools, I'll drill a little hole in the wall and see what's in there.
Mm.
And she sent me a message back and she's like, well, the first spot I hit, I ended up hitting a stud and you're going to be able to see it outside of the baseboard. I'm sorry, but I got the mouse out. And I was like, awesome, great. She articulated to me this morning that the whole time she was worried that I was going to get upset because that was my old way of being, that when something happened that was outside of my control, I'd get upset about it. I'd get angry
Mm.
about it. And especially if it involved me having to do more work, like patching some holes, I'd get even
Mm.
more angry about it.
Yeah.
And so it was interesting to like have that awareness from her perspective, because like when I got
Mm.
home and I looked at it and I still didn't get upset, I was like, oh, you can barely see, you know, the spot that you didn't actually get through. Like it's not going to be a big deal to patch it. All the rest of it's going to be behind the baseboard, so who cares?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I could viscerally feel her relax to that
Mm.
response.
Mm.
And I
Mm.
could feel the tension when she got home because we bypassed each other. She was heading to go teach yoga. I was coming home. And so I came home to see this. And in my mind, I'm thinking like she made this like massive hole with the hammer, right? Like really trying. And like, no, it was this
Yeah.
tiny little thing. As soon as I put the baseboard, there's literally ½ inch of a hole that was just like a slight
Oh.
indentation that will literally take me 30 seconds to patch with some mud. Like not a
Yeah.
big deal. And
Yeah.
so it was cool to like have this somatic awareness of recognizing that I've worked through some old stories that brought me into these emotions that came up of like anger or frustration and things like that, that I would viscerally feel in my body through like beating of my heart, anxiousness, tensioning within my body of like,
Mm.
you know, when we
Mm.
start to enter into that like fight mechanism, all of a
Yeah.
sudden our
Yeah.
body starts to tense up, our blood flows to our muscles because it's getting ready to fight. Like
Mm.
none of that happened. And it's
Mm.
cool to be
Mm.
able to have that awareness to like not only see how much this work is making a difference, but also how much more free I feel in each and every moment by no longer having these emotional response comes up that then starts
Hmm.
to enact these physical responses. Because at the end of the day, like our body doesn't know the difference between us physically encountering something and us just imagining something.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
like that's the true power of the mind, is that it does have the ability to convince the body something's actually happening if we're just thinking about
Absolutely. Yeah, that's when this vicious cycle starts. Like my thought is creating an emotion of fear, and the fear is triggering my mind
it. Then we
again
get caught in
to
that loop.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I love that because there are two things that I was just hearing out in your story, which is beautiful example for being response able. The first thing, like regarding the anger, yeah, you became the anger, right? Usually in this old pattern, you are the emotion, and that's interesting because then you fall immediately into being reactive because you are anger,
Right.
you are the anger, and this is when there's again no space, so it's just like trigger, emotion, reaction. So remember when I was I teach like the window of tolerance in our course, and I was talking about like, okay, if the window of tolerance is really really small and the threshold, and you're crossing the threshold to be reactive, then there's no chance to really be response able, yeah, because it's just like automatization, it's just our reptilia brain that is taking over. But like, first of all, identification with the emotion which is triggering then the reaction, and by cultivating more inner space, it's like literally the window of tolerance of your stress resilience is becoming bigger. So the trigger is coming. Now you have time to process that. Oh, I feel the emotion, because as you also described when we are teaching somatic awareness, like going through these three levels, the more I bring my awareness uh, inside and try to cultivate an understanding of, oh, this is actually a sensation, this is actually an emotion, the better you are trained also to, when an emotion comes up, to identify it. It's like, oh, now the emotion is coming up. But not I am the emotion, like being again reactive. It's like, oh, I feel the emotion. I feel, which is again, the observer is perceiving the emotion. And the other thing that I loved about your story is that by being response able, you could cultivate space not just for yourself but also for Rachel.
Yeah.
Yeah, so their co-regulation happened. Yeah, because usually if you would be reactive, that would also trigger her response of feeling shame, feeling guilt, whatever that pattern that she had due to her trauma response. But you being response able and like, oh, it's okay, no big deal, immediately helped her also to cultivate space. So, and this is where I think this somatic awareness practice, or cultivating inner space in general, is so important also for not just oneself, but also for the whole collective. Because the more we can tune in with ourselves, the more we are response able and being able to allow others to co-regulate with us. And I mean, that's, I think, one of the most important aspects, most important attributes that we as humans should cultivate and have to live in a peaceful society.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think this is incredibly, and I'll just run with this for a little bit. And then maybe Samir, you can guide us through that somatic awareness practice, because I'd love to
Of
hear
course.
how you add this additional step of like true awareness to it.
Mm,
That's something that like, we obviously don't teach that extra step. There's an extra step that we do sometimes teach within the training, but that steps away
mm,
from that a little bit. But like hearing you talk about my ability to have responsibility in how I'm being within a situation creates space for Rachel to also be response able within that situation is actually like a fascinating thing here, because it's speaking to that when we do the work for ourselves, we also are doing the work for another individual. So by
Mm.
me being able to stay within my window of tolerance throughout that situation, then allowed Rachel to rewrite a story that was in her head, that if she
Mm.
communicates this thing and does this thing, then that's going to lead to me being upset. Which when she articulated this to me, I was like, oh, well, thank you for giving me the space to actually be a new person.
Mm.
Because if she applied the story that was running in her head to me, that I'm going to get upset from this situation, and instead is projecting this old version of who I was previously in our relationship onto my current version, she doesn't actually give me the space to be this new version. So it was like, it was beautiful at like how many awarenesses were coming up for me as she was articulating all of this. And it's like, wow. So by you still kind of tiptoeing around how you were telling me that things were happening, but then by me being able to see it and realizing that in my head, I actually made it out to be way worse than what it was. So when I got home and actually saw it, I was like, oh, this is no big deal. Like, it's not going to take me any time at all to fix this stuff. Allowed me the space to actually continue to rewrite in my own nervous system, in my own brain, who I'm continually trying to be,
Yeah.
instead
Yeah.
of going back into the old patterns of the person that I used to be that I don't want to be anymore.
Yeah. Absolutely beautiful. And, you know, I mean, wounding is happening in relation, right? Like we are wounded in relation, but also healing happens in relation. So it's in both ways. And the thing is, relation doesn't necessarily needs to be a intimate partner relationship. Relation in general, I mean, we can also zoom out, for example, and say like the relation that I have with my colleagues at work, the relation that I have with my boss, the relation that I have with the society, the relation that I have with the whole nation, the relation that I have with human, with nature, whatever it is, yeah, there's always a connection. And when we are shifting, and becoming more aware and creating more inner space, more connectedness, the more we are also signaling, yeah, in this relation that there is space to connect, which then immediately also allows the other part to connect. And if we are now shifting also paradigms, if we are shifting social conditioning patterns, what it means to be a man, for example, what we also discuss here in the podcast. Just imagine if we are changing that paradigm, if we're changing that stereotypes. That is also a relation that we have according to how I define myself with man, with other men. If that is changed, you know, if it's more aware, or let's say if we cultivate more space to see that this is just a trap, then also their healing happens, because I can then go out as a man not embodying these stereotypes, which also helps another man that is in connection with me to not feel triggered, or to not triggered, but to not feel um, encouraged to continue with that pattern. Yeah, it is breaking a pattern actually, because the old version is not able to connect with me then, or with you, or I am not able to connect with someone who is maybe has more space with my old pattern, because the pattern is only working in this relation, this very specific relation that was conditioned. So this is what I really love to just um, to really let that sing that because of relation we create wounds, yes, but also healing happens in relation. And the more we are creating more inner awareness, creating more a bigger window of tolerance to be more response able and detect these patterns and rewire that, the more we can also allow others in our community to connect with this part of our space, this healed space, part that was fragmented maybe in the past, but now is more integrated. Yeah, this integrated part. I think that is a beautiful analogy, like to zoom out. It's like, wow, actually, it can get bigger and bigger the more we are as a collective going into this inner space. Yeah, yeah. I would love to maybe guide us through a short somatic awareness meditation, just to also give everyone here the chance to embody and to understand it somatically, not just mentally, what we are talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, let's do this. Let's do this. So I invite everyone who's listening or watching to find now a seating position which is allowing your spine to be erected, that your spine is straight so that you can breathe very easily. You can sit on a chair, or you can also sit on the ground, and then just close your eyes, and let's start by tuning in with the breath and connecting with our breath. Let's just start by taking a deep, nice breath in through the nose and breathing out through the mouth. Beautiful. Let's do that again. Let's take a deep breath in and breathing out with a sigh. Beautiful. I can shake it out a little bit. We're taking so much tension in our body. Let's do it last time. A deep breath in, the deepest breath. Just hold it for a moment at the top. Hold it there and let it go with a sigh again. Beautiful. And now just breathe normally without thinking about the breath. And slowly bring your awareness, your focus inside your body. You can just follow your breath in and out and allow your body to relax. Your body wants to relax. Let's see if you can give your body the permission to relax a little bit deeper. Relax your hands. Relax your belly. See if you can drop your shoulders a little bit more. If there is some tension. Unclench your jaw. I will count down from 5 downwards. On each count, try to relax even deeper. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Beautiful. Now let's try to observe what is happening inside of your body. Just gently bring your awareness to your body and scan your body. Just realize, there's a body. There is a body. Can you sense your feet? Where are your feet? Try to connect with your feet. Where are your hands? Can you sense your hands? Just become aware that there are hands, arms, shoulders. There's a body. Now, while you are going around your body with your awareness, just pay attention What can you notice? Is there any sensation present? Some tingling in your hands. Maybe there are areas that feel more tight. Maybe there's some pain present. Just be aware of it. Don't try to change or force anything. Just be aware of that sensation. Beautiful. Let's go now a little bit deeper. And now switching to the realm of emotions. What can you feel? What emotion is right now present within you? Sad or happy? Is there anger present? Whatever emotion is present right now, just be aware of it. Again, don't try to force anything. If there's no emotion coming up, that's fine too. And just be present with the fact that there's no emotion present. Let's now go to the realm of the storyteller of the mind. Gently leave the emotion and come into the thoughts. What can you observe? Just imagine you're sitting in front of a screen and all your thoughts are projected onto that screen. Thought after the other. Don't try to follow the thought. Don't cling. Stay in the seat and just observe. What's the quality of your thoughts? Are they rushing, fast thoughts? Just pictures? Maybe there are no thoughts present right now. Just stay connected with whatever is projected on the screen. So these are the 3 levels of your being: thoughts, emotions, sensations. You can jump between those 3 levels. You can go back from the thoughts to the emotions, from the emotions down to the sensations, and just realize, just be aware that there's a different quality on each level. Whatever tries to bring you out of it, just come back to the sensation. Oh, I feel the tingling in my hands. Or the emotion that is present, the thought. So all 3 levels are happening in you. This is not you. You are not the sensation. You are not the emotion. You are not the thought. There's something observing it. There's something witnessing it. Connect with that. Connect with the observer. Imagine there is a space. A space. In that space, you can connect and see, oh, there are my sensations. Yes, there are my sensations. I can sense them. I notice them. And in that space, there are the emotions. Ah, there are the emotions. Oh, in that other corner, there are my thoughts. but you are the space. You are the observer. Being aware of that observer, being aware of being aware. Where's that space starting? Where's the end of that space? There's no end. There's no beginning. The space is infinite. Your awareness is infinite. Your consciousness is infinite. But the sensations, the emotions, and the thoughts are happening in that body. They are connected with that body. You can slowly come back now to the body. Gently move your fingers, your hands. Take a nice deep breath in. Breathe it out. Stretch yourself. Then gently open your eyes. And just give yourself a little bit of time to bring now also outer world in connection with the inner world. And also there, just be aware that the observer, the awareness is not changing. It doesn't matter if I am outside aware or if I'm inside aware. Yeah.
Such a beautiful practice.
That's a very powerful practice.
I love that addition of that fourth awareness aspect. And, you know, earlier when you were speaking about this idea of like, you know, we're zooming out and zooming out and zooming out, it kind of made me think of like, you know, modern day smartphones. I use the iPhone, and it has like, when you're taking a photo, it has like those three little dots to go from the wide angle or the ultra wide to the wide angle to the telephoto lens. And that's almost like what this is, right? Like when we're thinking from the mind, it's like we're stuck in that telephoto lens. You can only see so much of what you're actually looking at. But when you then move to the wide angle lens, you see quite a bit more. But then when you move to the ultra wide lens, you're finally seeing that big picture.
Yeah.
That fourth awareness aspect for me was like as if there was like an ultra wide lens, right? It's like I'm going from just being here in this visceral atomness state to zooming out all the way to like the cosmic aspect of atom.
Exactly. Beautiful. Exactly. Yeah. And this is the beauty of like we can if I use the analogy of the lens, we have this beautiful capability of zooming in and out. Like our awareness can zoom in and being in that body, being this persona, Adam, Samir, of that body, and playing in that lens. I can even go deeper and zoom in into aspects of this body and like totally immerse into an emotion, for example, and really observe the whole facets of unfolding of an emotion. I can be completely in a sensation, also in the thoughts, like time traveling with the thoughts, right? If you stay being connected with that lens and not being that thought. If you're the thought, then you are losing yourself. And there's also an invitation, like you can literally time travel consciously, being aware of the thought and just taking a ride with that thought. Wow, where is it taking me? And the same for me, like one of the most profound realizations was that my awareness is not restricted just to the body. Like I can be aware of everything around me, like I can be, of course, of my body, but I can be aware of everything around me. And as we said, like I can zoom out and be aware of the interconnectedness of everything. And I think this is so beautiful because it literally creates so much space that no matter what is happening from outside, a stressor coming in, being aware that everything is happening in an infinite space makes this one thing that is just entering that space so diminishable, so small. And still I can zoom in. I can decide, do I want to zoom in? There's nothing bad also to fully immerse into a stressor, to fully immerse into emotion. I don't say that, oh, I just want to be spaciousness and I want to not be connected with anything that is happening in the 3D world. I mean, that's the kind of escapism, right?
Yeah. It's by bypassing the actual experience.
Yeah. But still to be able to choose, I can be spacious. I can be aware of this cosmic experience, but I can also be this tiny, tiny little, or I can be focused on this tiny little aspect of my being that is happening right now in that moment in my body. And I think that is the beauty of this play, this divine play of zooming in, zooming out, but not being identified with it. Experience it to the fullest, but not falling into the trap of identification. I think that's where the beauty lies, and also where, again, the term healing, but where the term of integration happens. The more space I can cultivate, the more space, not just cultivate is a wrong word because the space is there. It's more like a reconnection with that space that is already present. The more I remember that this is part of me, the more I can also allow that this spaciousness is present within me and allows others to connect with that space.
It's interesting how like in alignment this conversation is with the chapter I was reading in Soulcraft this morning, because it was talking about actually kind of talking about the idea of somatic awareness, but from the like wilderness fasting vision quest kind of perspective, and how many times people can get caught up in either the physical sensation that they're experiencing, especially pain, an emotion that is heavy, maybe that they don't want to feel. And there is this visceral sense of wanting to change the experience or wishing that the experience was different. And in this section, it was talking about actually tapping into gratitude for the fact that you can feel the pain, for the gratitude that you can experience that emotion. Because how many of us throughout our lives have numbed ourselves so much that we can't even give language to what we're experiencing in the moment. You know, there's been some times where I've taken clients through the somatic awareness and they're like, I don't know what emotion I'm experiencing right now.
Yeah.
Because they literally just lack the languaging because they've numbed and pushed away the emotions so much, or tried to move themselves away from the emotions through distraction or anything else, that they now actually have lost the language for what they're truly experiencing and feeling.
Yeah.
And how much more difficult that actually makes it to be a human in this world where we incarnated in this body to physically feel and sense the world.
Yeah. Absolutely. This is one thing that I always mention when I'm doing the somatic breathwork practice with, like it's when I'm going into these repatterning rounds. The last round, I always try to bring more awareness exactly about that. Being grateful for a body that allows you to perceive life, that allows you to be part of life. Yeah. being really immersed in life. And you can only do that with a body that can sense, that can feel. And yeah, I love that you said on what was described in the book about being grateful for a certain emotion. But you can only be grateful for a certain emotion when you're not identified with that emotion, right? When
100%.
you have the quality of, oh, there is emotion present and I'm thankful for feeling that emotion right now because it's it's present in me, instead of like I am that emotion, and again like becoming this reactive, in this type of I don't have inner space to really observe it. I'm just in it. It's just a reaction. And then a pattern is activated. Either you try to numb that emotion because that's a protection mechanism in your nervous system, or that emotion that was memorized as not good for you because it is too overwhelming for you. So just numb it, right? Nowadays, these things are wonderful numbers of emotions. If emotion is present, we are just
Scrolling it
going
away.
for,
Yeah.
scrolling it away, looking for the next dopamine kick that makes us feel good. So yes, and I mean, of course, having compassion and saying like, yes, my body tries to protect me, and I don't want to. That also with the phone. I mean, I'm one of the best in these certain areas of numbing. So I don't mean that in any terms of like, oh, this is bad or shame on you if you do that. No, being compassionate, of course. We are all carrying wounds. We are all carrying our own backpack with heavy stones in it. But step by step, we can utilize practices like the somatic awareness practice that we just did to gain more and more freedom of these habits that are restricting us from living life to the fullest, to really be present and an active player in this
Right.
life instead of being constantly in the pattern of numbing. And this is a process. This is something that needs time. This is nothing that just comes along easily. So yeah, but this practice that we just did is, I think, for me personally, one of the most profound experience that I had to gain more connection to my inner space. 100%.
One of the things I wanted to, that was coming up for me as you were saying that, was that, it's when we have these heavier emotions that come up, like just being able to witness people go through this practice, like you can always tell when they've tapped into something that maybe they weren't quite aware of before, but now that they've become aware of it, it's like you can almost see like the shoulders drop with the weight of that emotion that they're carrying. And what's cool is like when we can adopt this space of gratitude for feeling any emotion and no longer labeling them as positive or negative, but like when we can see the light and the dark aspect of these emotions. Like if you allow yourself with gratitude to feel grief, you are actually creating space to feel its polar opposite, which is joy. There's this quote, I can't remember where it came from, but it says joy is the matriarch of the emotions. You have to meet all of her children before you can actually meet her.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And so it's like this idea of like, what if you pushing away being angry or you pushing away being sad, and you just keep doing all of the things that you can do to not have that experience, is actually making it so that you can experience joy.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I love that. I love that. And I also feel like that, I mean, and I know that you are an experienced meditator. When you are in stillness, when you are connected to your inner space, then the the sensation or the feeling that arises is peacefulness, is stillness, is a form of happiness. And this is what like the pursuit for happiness is actually not possible, because you cannot chase happiness, because happiness is the foundation of life. Like when I take everything out, what stays is like this inner peace of, I cannot use happiness the word because it's used already, it's blocked, but it is a state of fulfillment, of wholeness, which
Serenity.
comes close. Yeah, serenity, exactly. Yeah. So that's the base. And as soon as something is occupying that space, then we have this sense of fragmentation, which cause friction, which causes all certain emotions that are obscuring actually the foundation. Yeah. And I love that you said like you have to feel all through, because when you gain then space and felt everything through, you can again observe it from that space, from that the core of your being, and not judge it anymore, and not being in that friction anymore, but being in that turmoil anymore. And again, this is not dissociation. I'm not talking about dissociating myself from. Dissociating means I cut myself out of it and I don't feel anything. It's just the contrary. You feel everything, but not being captured by it. Yeah. And this is where gratitude comes, like, oh, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for being able to feel that. And to be honest, sometimes it's working, sometimes it's not, because it's very easy to jump back into that. And oh my gosh, I mean, anger is such a. We talked about anger in 2 episodes, and I mean, anger is really a hard one. So to not feel being completely immersed by it, and I mean, it's also again, we talked about that anger is very connected with power, right? I mean, it's also a good feeling. And there again, the polarity is coming. Like there's always the polarity in every emotion, right? Sadness can be very, very painful, but on the other side, it can be so beautiful to be immersed in sadness. It's like this melancholy, for example. It's a form of sadness, right? But it's like beautiful. So yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, maybe we should do another podcast about emotions and go into expressions. And
Yeah.
I think this is a beautiful thing to also for these wonderful souls who are listening here and watching this podcast, to gain more and more connection with the emotion, and not to push it away, but learning and trying to reconnect with that space that allows you to embrace emotions, no matter what kind of.
Yeah. And I mean, also, for all of you that listening made it all the way to this point in the podcast, thank you. And to just also recognize that, like, if you're hearing us say and speak to these emotions and being able to feel emotions with gratitude, and you're like, okay, I hear it, but I'm not there yet. Compassion. Like, it's okay that you're not there yet. Like, we're not 100% there yet.
No.
I would say that this is a lifelong process. And I was saying this to Rachel this morning when I was reading her, that section from the book, because I thought it was really important around learning to have gratitude for all of the different experiences that we have, and really trying to shift away from labeling any as good or bad. But she was like, well, I definitely, there's certain things that I don't know if I can have gratitude for. And I was like, then that's okay. It's like, if you've spent 40 years of your life with this belief that when you feel sadness, that equates to being something that's bad, or that if you're feeling sadness, something inherently bad happened, it might take 40 years to completely rewrite that programming. So,
Yeah.
like, having grace with yourself as you're moving through this process, as you are unbecoming who you no longer wish to be, and you're slowly becoming the person that you want to be, know that you're going to stumble. Know that there's going to be days where it's going to be incredibly easy, and there's going to be days where it's going to be incredibly hard. And can you have gratitude and pride for yourself on the days where it's easy? And can you have gratitude and compassion for yourself on the days when it's hard?
Yeah. Beautiful. And actually, I think it's exactly about that. I think that is what what it's all about. It's finding compassion and gratitude in every moment, no matter where you are in that journey of life. Because I don't believe in any kind of we will heal every wounds and be completely whole. And I think this is not the game here. I think the game that we are all thrown in, and again, I'm speaking from a horizontal experience, not from vertical. It's not about stepping a ladder up and like, oh, I am here and you are here. We are all on that level, everyone, because we're all thrown into this game of life, into this lila, into this illusion, play Maya, and to experience life to its fullest with all its facets. And I think the only thing that we gain access to is a profound state of being able to feel compassion. Yeah. And I think the more we are cultivating that, the less we are taking into these turmoils of life. Still being in a turmoil, but maybe not identifying it with it so much. So, yeah, I think this is important to always highlight. There is no, at least this is what I feel about all this inner work, spiritual work, however we'll call it. There's no ascendance. There's no, I mean, the term enlightenment also just implies a kind of, I have to be special to gain that. I have to be chosen, or I have to practice for millennia. No, I think we are all here. Let's say consciousness is here to experience itself in myriads of ways. And yeah, I have this beauty of a body that allows me to be in the first person perception of an avatar called Samir, or I can also zoom out and use a different lens on my iPhone.
Yeah.
See a little bit different this game.
It's interesting, like when you were saying that, this is the idea of like we're going on this horizontal plane versus like this vertical plane of like, it actually made me think of, we've talked about it before in the training where it's like a spiral. And that's where my brain first thought of, because like on a spiral, we can move horizontally, but we're also moving vertically as well. And sometimes we're moving up the spiral and sometimes we're moving down the spiral. But it actually made me think of like, the torus, like the symbol and how energy moves in this infinite loop of where it's like, it goes out and then it comes in, but it also goes up and it goes down. So it's like, it's moving linear horizontally, but it's also moving vertically, but it's also zooming in and out at the same time. And so it's like, this is what we're constantly doing on this, like, continuing to try and like step away from the language around like healing, right? Like this is evolution. Like this is actually what we're doing when we're working through all of these aspects of ourselves, when we're rewriting old limiting beliefs, when we're creating new ways of being, when we're stepping into compassion and gratitude in every moment. Like this is an evolutionary process of you being a human.
Yeah, 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 exactly. But not an evolution in terms of an ascendance in any kind of I think what we, especially in our mind driven culture and times, is like evolution with technological improvement. Like evolution is not about, there's not vertical, it's also horizontally. Life is just adapting. Life is always adapting to new changes. I think that's the beauty, because it's infinite. Like all iterations, because nothing is stable. Everything is in movement. Everything is changing. Life is change. And by that, life will always change into different iterations of experience. And yeah, I love that. And yeah, I think we have to get out of this concept of improving, because, you know, I know that you also love um, podcasts that are going deeper into the spiritual realm, but also into the realm of maybe what it is to be human. And if we are just looking back into the history of humankind and to these different time lines of societies, empires, whatever it was, like civilizations. In our perspective, because we are now in the technological age, and we are in this mind-driven age, it seems like we are more improved than civilizations in the past. But from the awareness perspective, or from a conscious perspective, there's no measurement. Yeah, I mean, people might be much more connected in the past than we are in the future, in the present now, right? So there's no improvement. It's just different time zones with different experiences, because it's a different circumstance
Yeah,
of life.
there's like a degree of separation in that analysis, right? Like
Mm.
in our current mind view, in the realm that we live in right now, we look at technology as internet, AI, these microphones that we're speaking into. Rewind 2,000 years ago, technology was fire. Technology was the
Mm.
wheel. Technology was agriculture. Technology was language. Technology was
Mm.
books. Technology was plant medicine. So, like,
Mm. Mm.
this idea and term of technology is only relevant to the time period in which you find yourself. Because if we brought if we brought an ancient Mayan from 2,000 years ago into current time period, he would look at all of us and be like, you all are mentally unstable and unwell.
Exactly.
Y'all are lost, and how can I help you?
Yeah.
Whereas we would look at them and be like, oh my God, you're so lost. What are the clothes that you're wearing? Like, why are you half naked?
Yeah.
Like, why are you living the way that you're living? You need to adopt our modern day technology, right? Like,
Exactly. Yeah. You have no medicine. You die from a cold.
yeah,
Yeah, this is so interesting, and it always reflects again, like in what time of period we are living, that puts a focus on a certain aspect of our being again. But the somatic awareness practice that we did with the sensations, emotions, and thoughts. I mean, we are very much in the thought area now, in the era of the thought of the mind. But there were other eras where it's more about emotions, where it was more about the body, more about connectiveness with nature, and all of these eras had their own profoundness, deepness. Yeah? I was just yesterday. I saw an article about um, an an anthropologist who, I forgot his name, who was in the 70s in Africa and visited Bushman tribes. And the one Bushman was asking this anthropologist if he can also hear the stars singing. And he was saying, like, the stars are not singing. Like, there's nothing. And it seems like that these Bushmen really could perceive sounds in the night emitting from stars, because they were so connected, they were so sensitized to their senses were so sharp that they could connect with certain frequencies that we in modern times can't. So they were so connected. And he said like something like, he's so sad that we cannot connect with Mother Nature, that we cannot hear the stars singing, which really touched me. Yeah, here is this Bushman who, from our perspective, is like living in a very archaic, like stuck in a very archaic time period of anthropological evolution. But he could hear the stars sing, and we can't, right? Who knows what kind of perception they have about nature and how deep connected they are viscerally with their body. So this is like, I feel like we are going now deeper and deeper. Maybe we should keep that for another episode.
Yeah, I'd actually really like to unpack that a little bit more on the next episode, of this idea of how we've become so interconnected from a technological standpoint that we've actually become increasingly more disconnected from a naturalistic standpoint.
Yeah. Yeah, let's do that. Next episode, everyone.
All right, friends.
Let's dive into that.
Tune in next time for another deep unpacking of some of these ways in which, we can utilize nature to help us to connect to our own nature.
Yeah. Wonderful. All right, everyone. Thank you, brother. It was again a pleasure to be in connection with you. And I'm looking forward to the next deep dive.
I agree, brother. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on another episode, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Bye, everyone.